Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to our webinar. As you well know, everyone is welcome to our webinars, but we have a few expenses like Meetup and Zoom and our website. So please donate if you can. Just go to our website at rockymountaiнаtheist.ca and you'll find the donate button there. Any amount will help us keep on going with everything that we do. Just a few words before we start. We are an inclusive community of atheists, humanists, skeptics, secular free thinkers, and we'll welcome anyone to come to our events and participate. We have never had any disruptive attendees, so please let's keep this record going. Discussion is encouraged, of course, but let's respect everyone that's attending. At the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A. Remember, today we are recording in a different time. So if you're watching this after July 16th, oh, I forgot the date, you won't have any Q&A. But today, whoever is present will be allowed and participate in the Q&A. Just use the Zoom options to raise your hand, and then we'll be calling you in order of raising hands. A quick disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed by the speakers and audience members during this presentation are their own, and they do not reflect the official policies, positions, or views of the Rocky Mountain Atheists. Well, finally, let's get to our guest speaker. That's Garrett Lang. He's a philosopher, technologist, and ethical systems architect on 5 intentions to create a better life for ourselves and others. I'll stop sharing now. So now that Garrett can take control whenever he's ready to start his presentation.
Great. You can see my screen now, I think.
Yes.
Great. So thank you all for your time and attention tonight. So I'm going to talk about 5 general rules, and I'm actually going to expand them sort of dynamically to 6 rules. I'm going to break one rule apart into 2 for a reason that I'll explain. And basically, my argument is going to be that we should all be intending to do these things all the time. We call them the 5 intentions, soon to be called the 6 intentions of the Freethinker Institute. And I welcome questions and disagreement in the Q&A about whether or not you agree with that. I'm going to make the argument that all reasonable people, I like we can reason because I think that these are rules that would be agreeable by all reasonable people. And I can define what I mean by reasonable. It's essentially using the legal precedent of a reasonable person. It's perhaps the most well-defined phrase in the English language, although a lot of people don't know that unless they've been into the legal system. And basically, I'm going to argue that these rules, if we follow them, make our lives and the lives of those around us better by following them. And if adopted widely, I think they have the power to positively transform the world in a secular way. And it doesn't require either belief or non-belief either way. And if you don't see how these rules could transform the world, ask me in the Q&A, and I'll try to give some examples of why I think they could. So that said, go to the first slide. So the first intention is to be polite, seek personal development, try to be the best version of yourself, seek truth, and try your best to be fair. And this is about committing to kindness, personal growth, honesty, and justice. It's about being respectful to all and improving continuously so that you're looking for what's true, not looking to be right, but looking for what the truth is and trying to get closer to the truth. I would argue everyone has confirmation bias, and we would all be better off trying to look for reasons that we're wrong rather than the reasons that we're right, which is what confirmation bias means, is that we generally tend to look for reasons that we're right. And I would argue that being fair to others, even when it's hard, even when it's not in our best interest, is important, and that we should all try to do that because it in turn builds trust with other people when you do that, and that creates the gift of positive relationships, which are actually one of the most important things in life. And not having good relationships, which is essentially results in loneliness, is basically more harmful to the health than smoking. So it is extremely important to life, both in terms of happiness as well as longevity. So the four elements basically help keep us grounded, growing, and connected to each other with integrity and compassion. Um, Go to the next slide. So a little bit of inspiration from the whys of people who agree with this. Arthur Schopenhauer, a famous philosopher, said it is a wise thing to be polite and a stupid thing to be rude. So he was a pretty blunt guy, as you can tell. The Key to Happiness is Progress and Growth by Lewis Howes. Um, I hope you don't mind if my daughter joins us. I like to present to her as well. So when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be, which is Lao Tzu from ancient China. And what he means by that is that, we have to be willing to grow and learn in order to realize our potential. Something that Buckminster Fuller was big on is helping everyone realize their potential and get better at that. So Steve Jobs also was focused on personal growth. He returned to Apple a lot wiser and more humble after a search for self-discovery and spiritual growth. He became kind of a newfound person and helped Apple grow to be at one point the wealthiest company or the most valuable company in the world, although that was now passed by NVIDIA. Um, Living this out in everyday practice, I'm going to do these three things for each of the intentions as some, wise people that kind of agree with those intentions, sort of grounding them in historical philosophy. And then I'm going to go into like the practical, how do you apply this into your daily life? In conversations, I think it's important to prioritize fairness, politeness, and truth over being right, and ask, what do I have to learn from the person that I'm talking to? I like to say you learn far more by asking thoughtful questions with empathy to understand why someone came to a different conclusion than you do by using what I call the logic hammer, which is you're wrong and I'm right and this is why, which is what most people tend to do when they're in a discussion with someone that they don't agree with. But that's usually not very fruitful. And so I think it's much better to follow what I call the platinum rule or the modified platinum rule. Actually, the platinum rule existed since the 70s, but I really liked it. It just had some flaws. Maybe I'll go through the golden rule says to treat others the way you want to be treated, but there's a flaw with that, which is, I love to speak Spanish, as someone mentioned earlier, before we started the recording. And so I, would like people to speak Spanish to me, but if I speak Spanish to all of you tonight, well, there are probably a lot of you that don't speak Spanish, so that wouldn't be very productive. But that's following the golden rule. So the platinum rule says to treat other people the way they want to be treated, which is good, but unfortunately, some people could take advantage of that. And someone could just say, well, Garrett, send me a check for your whole net worth tomorrow. And that's what I want to be treated like. And I could say, well, I have a good reason not to do that. So the modified platinum rule is treat other people the way they want to be treated unless there's a good reason not to. And so that's kind of a good practical rule, I think, to follow in general when using the 5 or 6 intentions as they're going to be seen. So intention number 2 is to be transparent and open-minded. So you want to, have the courage to show people who you are and be curious about what they say with an open mind. Um, yeah, this no. So be curious about what they say and listen to them with an open mind, rather than being defensive. And I like to say it's okay to admit you're wrong because when you do with good judgment, you're immediately right again. You're more right than you were before. The only time you're ever truly wrong is when it's clear to everyone around you that you're wrong and you refuse to admit it. And that's what happens when you don't have an open mind. So very important to keep an open mind and learn about where we have current misunderstandings. We all have misunderstandings about something or some things. And only by keeping an open mind can we learn where we have misunderstandings. That's how we get unstuck from our confirmation bias that I mentioned before, that most people are really not just a little stuck, but mired in. I've had people tell me that they have heard evidence that people don't learn anything new after their early 20s. I don't think that's true. I think a lot of us are continuing to learn, but some people probably do get very stuck in their belief systems by their early 20s. And if you haven't changed your mind about something important in the last year, you're probably stuck in confirmation bias because if you're focused on being the best version of yourself, you will continue to evolve over time as you seek to get closer to truth, fairness, and reaching your potential. So, so the other thing is we all want to be heard and understood. So why not listen to other people and try to understand where they're coming from, which is what we call listening to understand in the FTI. So a couple of great thinkers that valued openness. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it, which was from Aristotle. And so you want to be able to, listen to someone, understand where they're coming from. You don't necessarily have to agree with them to understand why they came to their conclusion. Now, Oscar Wilde said, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken, right? And so why not be your authentic self? That's part of transparently sharing who you are with other people. A lot of people are afraid to share themselves. I think what tends to happen is someone will share themselves very openly, and then they get burned by it. Someone else will use what they shared against them, and so then they get burned and they stop sharing with other people. What you have to remember is that, and a lot of the time that ends the relationship. But really, what you have to remember is that not everybody is capable of having you share all of your authentic self with them. You want to share as much as you can until you learn the limits of what you're able to share with that person, and then not necessarily end the relationship, but tone down and say, that's too much. I can't share that much with that person, but I can still have a good positive relationship with them. And then, be willing to share with other people and see what the depths of those relationships can be. And to do that, you share slowly and gradually over time, more and more with the people that are trust that you can trust. Um, so Socrates basically built his whole philosophy on listening and questioning with mostly humility and curiosity. But I would argue he wasn't always as polite as he should have been, and he often used his wit to kind of outsmart people and humiliate them. And that was why he was sentenced to death by drinking hemlock. Not an ideal outcome, so I think that be polite is really important when practicing transparency and open-mindedness. So, how to apply this in your daily life? Share your beliefs gently and invite feedback. Say, well, this is what I think, and this is why I think it. And, you know, the next time you hear something that you don't agree with, take a pause and try to ask questions instead of saying why you disagree, and just, again, listen with empathy. I'm saying it repeatedly because I think it's just not done nearly enough. And you want to reflect on times that you were wrong that helped you grow. And if you can't think about times you were wrong, then you want to go back to like, well, maybe I'm not seeing the times that I'm wrong. And you want to talk with someone that you trust will actually tell you when you're wrong, and have a really down-to-earth conversation with them about how you can grow and develop as a person. Next is you want to build relationships where disagreement deepens trust instead of breaks it. And what this does is, there was a great post that someone that I know that shares a lot of wise posts posted on Facebook, not necessarily the beacon of wisdom normally, but what it said is that, excellent leaders surround themselves with people who, or that, sorry, it starts with weak leaders surround themselves with yes men, people who always agree with them. Strong leaders surround themselves with people who challenge their opinions. Now, it doesn't mean that they always prove you wrong, right? But at least they challenge your opinions and get you to think more deeply about your beliefs. And sometimes they will prove you wrong, right? And when they do, if you accept that they're right, you are immediately right again, just more right than you were before. Next is the third intention, which is about critical thinking. And really, this is about using both intuition and logic and reason and evidence to tell fact from fiction and wisdom from folly. And you have to be able to question your existing assumptions and the assumptions of others to really look for, how you can get closer to truth. It's really the engine of continuous improvement and progress. It's how we discover what is fact and fiction and wisdom from folly. And I do this, I think this is largely done by creating mental models of the world and trying to predict things. If you're constantly being surprised at what's going on in your life, the chances are good that you need a little bit of work on critical thinking because you haven't created mental models that are predictable about the things that you're encountering. Now, it could also mean you're taking a lot of risk, and that's okay too. But even in those cases, like generally, if you have really good mental models about the world, you're surprised much less often than someone who has a lot of misunderstandings about the world. So this also helps us make better choices that help rather than harm ourselves and others, which we're going to get into in the next intention. And I presented over a 2-month series on critical thinking. So for anyone that wants to practice their critical thinking, that is very core to the FTI. All these intentions are, but I'm putting in the chat the series on critical thinking that I did for the FTI. It's I think 8 sessions. So you may enjoy that. So, a little bit about how to practice critical thinking in everyday life. When you hear a strong opinion, you want to ask, what's your evidence? Why do you believe that? Right? And get down to the facts and then use those facts with logic to kind of come to your own conclusions. You also want to look for multiple perspectives. We talk about this a lot in the FTI, and it's about looking at, for example, if you're reading something in the news. If you watch news on one side of the political spectrum, then look for news on the opposite side and in the centrist area. Or if you're a centrist, look at the news on both the or on all of the different major political perspectives of the area in the world that you live in, because doing that helps you see a more broad view of what's really going on. You also want to look for and understand what logical fallacies are and look for them in yourself and others. And it's okay to point them out. Say, I think that might be a fallacy and it might be this type, and explain to them why you think that. And if people don't know what fallacies are, you'll be doing them a favor by educating them on what a fallacy is. Now, some people, people who are following the 6 intentions will like having someone point out their flaws. There's a great Buddhist quote that is, treat a trusted friend who points out your flaws as if they've revealed a cache of hidden treasure, because that really helps you in your self-development. So be thankful for people who point out your flaws. Don't be mad at them. Now, not everybody who says you have a flaw is accurate, but if you listen to them with an open mind and you use your critical thinking skills to really deeply search inside yourself and say, is this really a flaw that I can improve on? And if so, then, well, really, even if it's not, you should thank the person for giving feedback, because the truth is, people are more afraid of giving feedback than they are of receiving feedback. And studies have shown that, psychological studies have shown that. So you want to thank people for giving you feedback. And if you don't agree with them, you don't have to listen to their feedback, but you can still thank them for giving it. So next, you want to be open to changing your mind when new facts emerge. If someone tells you something that you never knew and you've never heard of or you've never thought about, well, there's a good reason that you might want to change your mind if that changes the calculus for that particular situation. So, next, I'm going to go into the fourth intention, which I split into two actually. The first of which is going to be the fourth intention, is we should prevent significant unnecessary harm from happening to all human beings, full stop, 100% of the time. Whenever we can influence it, we should prevent significant unnecessary harm. Now, I can define what I mean by significant and unnecessary. First of all, I also want to define harm. Harm is self-opted into. So if someone yells at me, if I don't feel harmed by it, it's not harm, right? If I say, hey, that was harmful, then suddenly it enters the category of harm because I've said that I didn't like that, it's harmful to me. Now, is it significant harm? Well, in order for it to be significant harm, it has to mean that if I accuse someone of significant harm, if it went in front of a jury of peers, that jury of peers would say this is so bad that it should be punishable by the law. And if a jury of peers says that it's so bad it should be punishable by the law, then it's significant, using the standard of a reasonable person, which again is a legal precedence. Now, what's a necessary harm? Because I mentioned unnecessary harm. So if I see someone shooting school children and I have a gun, I'm going to shoot him and I'm going to cause harm, maybe even kill him. But I would argue that's a necessary harm because it prevents the greater harm of him shooting the school children. So, um, hopefully that makes sense. If there are questions, I'm happy to take questions about all of this in the Q&A. So, the next intention, which will be the fifth intention, is about increasing happiness and decreasing harm in the world. And when I say happiness, I don't mean fleeting joy. I mean long-term sustainable happiness, Really, what I mean is the satisfaction you get from achieving whatever goals you have. Whatever they might be, as long as they don't cause significant unnecessary harm, I would argue people should be able to do kind of whatever they want as long as it doesn't cause significant unnecessary harm. Now, in helping people achieve those goals, we should also try to reduce the amount of harm, not necessarily significant unnecessary harm, but all kinds of harm that people feel opportunistically, with a priority being on the people we can influence the most, which for anyone familiar with Peter Singer's On Famine essay, this kind of gets at why what feels intuitive may not align with what he wrote there. Um, and it's really about the fact that the people we can influence the most are the ones that we should prioritize the most because we can have the biggest impact with those people. That doesn't mean ignore completely everybody else and that we should cause harm to people that we can't influence too much. It just because we can influence those people if we can cause harm to them. It actually puts them in the category of people we can influence. What it means is we want to prioritize having the biggest impact on increasing happiness and decreasing harm we can. And I actually have on my shirt here the Stoic Circle, which starts from the self and then goes to family and then friends and then community and then humanity and then all of life. And so it talks about really the what I'm describing existed in ancient Stoics in the ancient Greece, where the Stoics were talking about that sort of concentric set of circles, and they already kind of prioritized in the way that I'm talking about. They just didn't use the terms that I'm talking about. They used the circles that I mentioned before, but they're roughly aligned. But the reason that I think the way that I say it is a little more accurate is that some people grow up in an adopted family or they grow up with no family, right? They may be an orphan and they may not have any relatives that survived some sort of horrible situation. And those people still, can choose friends that are like family. So um, it's a more general way of saying it to prioritize the people you can influence the most. So next, some wise words. The Hippocratic Oath, and as well as wisdom from Stoicism and Buddhism, says do no harm. But that is something that has echoed across a lot of cultures. And I did kind of point out the flaw in that first quote, which is that a harm that prevents a greater harm is one that I think we should have the courage to cause. Because preventing significant unnecessary harm means taking away people's power that can cause significant unnecessary harm when we can influence that. It means disempowering those people so that, which might it mean at times mean incarcerating them, right? So that they don't continuously cause harm to society. Although I think that we did an event in the FTI about recidivism is basically when someone goes to jail and gets out, how often do they go back to jail? And the countries that focus on rehabilitation, which the US used to do before the 70s, are the ones that have the lowest crime rates and the lowest rate of people going back and causing crime. Unfortunately, since the 70s, the US has focused on punishment, and that's a different story. I don't mean to digress though. So basically, showing people how to have job skills as and reincorporate back into society, I think is a better solution and has been shown to be more successful. Now, increasing happiness and decreasing harm is about noticing and Thich Nhat Hanh basically said true happiness comes from reducing the suffering of others. And I do think that there's a lot to be said for giving to other people is where a lot of true happiness comes from. I definitely get a lot of happiness from being helpful to other people. And the people that I know that do the same also get a lot of joy and happiness from it. So I think helping people could come in the form of increasing their happiness, decreasing their harm, or both. And we want to look at how our choices are going to affect people both directly and indirectly. It means sometimes holding your tongue when you're angry and not yelling something that you're going to regret later. May mean refusing to exploit a system that disadvantages other people. Um, it may mean helping someone accomplish their goals and saying, like, look, if we help each other, and I like to say, if we don't help each other, who's going to help us? right? And when you say it that way, it's so obvious that we really need to help each other because we're all going to need help at some point in our lives. So, and it really is fun helping other people. And it's also fun when other people help us. We feel supported and cared for. So, having that kind of mutual relationship is great. Not necessarily a quid pro quo or counting favors kind of thing, but kind of a I'll be there for you when you need me or when you want me there, and letting people know that you can support them and be of assistance. So, daily practices for reducing harm and growing happiness. You want to, ask, like you want to, before you act, you want to ask yourself, is there anyone that I can influence? Is there anyone that I can influence that causes significant unnecessary harm? If so, you want to try to convince them not to. If you can't do that, you want to disempower them as best you can. The next step is, can I decrease happiness? Could something that I'm about to do decrease happiness or increase harm? And if so, you want to ask yourself, hey, is there a better way to handle this situation that actually increases happiness and decreases harm instead? And I talk about something in the FTI called total net present positivity. And what that means is that you don't just look at the current position in time. You want to look at long-term happiness and long-term harm. So you think about the people you can influence. How is this decision going to influence their entire life and your entire life? And you're just going to make a best guess effort, a best guess estimate because none of us know any of this with certainty. The future is always uncertain, but you want to take your best guess. And an example would be if you're a college student and you want to go out drinking, every night, like, well, maybe and not study at all. Well, maybe that's not the best choice if you're in a field of study that requires that you actually understand the things you're studying academically. Now, maybe if you're in a field of study that, your grades don't matter and it doesn't matter if you fail out of class and what matters is the relationships you make, maybe that's okay, right? And you have to kind of be the decision maker. We're all the captain of our own ship. But ultimately, you want to look at how this is going to help your happiness and the happiness, how it's going to impact the happiness and harm of you and the people you can influence throughout your lifetimes. And then what we call that is if you take each person's total happiness minus the harm, and there's usually some translation because harm is usually worse than harm is usually worse than the commensurate amount of happiness. Then you want to look at what's the total impact on happiness and harm of the decisions you're going to make. Now, I mentioned the modified platinum rule, and that's where I would say we should, treat other people the way that they want to be treated, unless there's a good reason not to. So this helps us to think about not only ourselves, but also across time and our social circles. And it really helps us encourage ethical reflection on how each action contributes or detracts from the flourishing of everyone we meet. It's not about perfection, it's about intentional balance. And we're never going to be perfect. So you don't want to agonize over these decisions. I like to say, don't stress, just do your best and accept the rest. And if you've done your best, you can't do better. So you have to let things fall where they may, and you have to continue to move forward in making decisions. So you just want to spend more time making the more important decisions, so that you're making them a little more carefully and thoughtfully. The small decisions you make a little bit quicker. And, ultimately, I'm a big believer in trusting your gut. I think intuition and gut can make decisions very quickly and accurately when there's no time to do otherwise. So next intention 5 is to give, receive, and reciprocate love, and that's both platonic as well as romantic. And so this is really about both. Some people are good at receiving love but not giving it. Some are good at giving it, not receiving it, and some can give and receive but don't always reciprocate. I would argue, the best situation is where you can do all three and you actively try to do all three. Because if you surround yourself with people who reciprocate, receive, and give love, then you're really helping each other in a way that is kind of a virtuous cycle of giving. And love, we all want to be loved, at the end of the day. And so why not give more love into the world and to the people that you interact with? And doing that is usually appreciated. It's always appreciated, I think, and usually people will express the appreciation. And the people who do, you can continue to have this virtuous cycle of giving and receiving of positive vibes, basically. So, next is some famous people on the subject of love. Mahatma Gandhi said, "Where there's love, there's life." Um, and the Dalai Lama said, "Love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries." And then, I have my saying that I mentioned. And then when we look at the wisest people in history, they don't talk about love like a luxury. It's really talked about as an essential thing. A lot of the wisest people see it that way. Christ really taught love and compassion at his core. And while we may all have different opinions on how at least current American Christians take that into account. If you read the New Testament and the Bible, it's, repeatedly talking about love everyone, including your enemies. And I think that while I don't think that interacting with someone who's giving you a lot of negativity on a regular basis is a good idea, I don't think holding a grudge or being vengeful is a good idea either. So, I should have put a quote from Christ in there. Um, so basically, let's go to the next slide. Bringing more love into the world. So, from a practical approach, if you tell someone what you appreciate about them right now, you could do it in the chat. I would love for people to say, for people that you know in this community, what are the things that you like about them? And then when you receive compliments, rather than deflecting or being bashful, just say thanks, and say, wow, I appreciate you pointing that out. I appreciate you noticing that, right? And then people will feel like their compliment was appreciated and that you heard them and you listened to them with an open mind. When someone is rude, I recommend responding with curiosity instead of anger. The natural tendency is to be angry at someone who's rude, but actually a much better approach is to say, "Are you okay? Like, is everything okay?" Because usually if someone's rude, it's because of either reflection, either you were just rude to them and they're being rude back, which is reflection, or deflection, which means someone was just rude to them and now they're being rude to you because they're in a bad mood, or projection, where they have a lot of negativity inside and they're projecting that negativity onto you. And then lastly, it might be actually an accurate pointing out of something you did wrong. And I would argue those are true in decreasing likelihood of truth, but you should always have an open mind that they're accurately pointing out something you did wrong. But you also have to keep in mind that that's usually not the case of someone being rude. Um, Next is, choosing empathy, even when it's not convenient. I really think that remembering to be caring of everybody is something that's appreciated. And if you respond to someone that's rude with compassion, you'll see that even if not immediately, they will usually appreciate it. Another thing that I like to do is to ask people, why they think something. Well, why do you think that, right? And if someone says, "Garrett, you're a jerk," I'll be like, "Oh, okay. Well, why do you think that? Why do you think I'm a jerk? Help me understand your perspective." And just asking with an inquisitive eye rather than getting defensive tends to yield much better results. So I see this as kind of a new way of life is to, although for some people, I've told these to some people and they said, "Garrett, that's exactly how I live." And that's great. If it's already how you live, then you're already headed down the right path, in my opinion. Although we're not dogmatic about these because we're open to feedback, and that's what the Q&A will be. If someone has a reason one of these is wrong, I'm going to change it, right? That's how I'm changing the fourth to fourth and fifth, because in conversations with people, I realized that you need to prioritize preventing significant unnecessary harm before you can increase happiness and decrease harm. Otherwise, there can be a mismatch. So basically, what now I want to do is imagine a world where these five or six intentions are really the norm, not the exception. While some people do follow them even before they had heard them, I think I did for the most part, but not as well as I do now that I've written them down. And have deeply kind of thought about them. I've actually written a book about them, which isn't published yet. But if anyone wants the manuscript, just let me know, and I'm happy to get feedback from you on the book. And then basically imagine this world where people speak with kindness even when they're in conflict, even when they disagree with each other, where growth is a shared value, not a private struggle, and where truth and fairness matter more than egotism. I did another event in the FTI about how egotism is the root cause of all preventable harm on Earth. And I think I made a pretty good argument that that's the case. Well, imagine where every choice begins with the question, will this harm anyone in a significant, unnecessary way? And where love isn't rare, it's expected. Each of these intentions stands strong on its own, but together they form a holistic approach to life and a compass for really how to live life in a way that not only uplifts ourselves, but also others and everyone around us. The best part is you don't have to be perfect. You just need to intend. You just need to try. And that's why they're called intentions, is that we should be intending to do them, not that we're going to follow them all perfectly all the time. Um, the power is that you're trying your best, and that's where I say don't stress, do your best and accept the rest. The decision is to try each day to improve yourself, always be polite, seek truth, get closer to truth, and be fair. And by fairness, by the way, I mean the fourth and fifth intention, preventing significant unnecessary harm and increasing happiness and decreasing harm. So I want you to ask yourself, which intention are you most drawn to? Which one will you practice tomorrow in a conversation, a decision, or a challenge? And really, we think that it's empowering to live by these values, and that it's a movement that helps create more out of life, more connection, more wisdom, more love, and so I actually would like to show. I'm going to show a diagram at the end of this, but I want to talk about what I think we can accomplish by having a wide group of people adopt these intentions. So first is, as the FTI, these are our five big ambitious goals. One is that we want more people to follow the five intentions. We're actually creating an organization called the Global Ethical Alliance of not-for-profits and for-profits potentially that want to agree with the five intentions and want to help people in their organizations leverage them. And then we want to increase positive relationships. There's a dearth of friendships in the world, and we want to help people build more positive, meaningful relationships because in a world short on friendship, connection is really a form of healing. As I talked about with loneliness being more harmful to the health than smoking. Next, we want to unite a very divided world that we live in. So we want to foster more open-mindedness in a culture where listening to understand becomes the norm and replaces insisting that we're right. We want to, and this is where I think listening to understand comes in to help understand where other people are coming from. We also want to promote win-win relationships and foster relationships built on mutual benefit, mutual respect, where no one wins at another's expense. The typical business relationships are potential for win-lose. We try to create all win-win relationships. And when people win together in a win-win relationship, the win is usually much bigger for all parties involved. And it should be if it's done fairly, which is part of the first intention. Next is we want to create financial prosperity for everyone, which is a world, and I'm envisioning this world not today because it's not technically possible today, but in the next 50 to 100 years, it very much should be possible, and I'll explain why in a second. But basically, I want to create a world where every human being on Earth has the means and opportunity to achieve a quality of life equivalent to earning $100,000 USD a year in purchasing power parity in the average US town or city. And this would basically include inclusive systems for income, ownership, education, and healthcare. Um, and basically, the reason that I think this is going to be possible in the next 50 to 100 years is because in the Roman Empire, the average income in USD and modern USD dollars was about $500. In 1900, it was about $5,000 to $6,000. Now it's about $60,000 to $70,000. And it would be hard to imagine at the accelerating rate of technology and with the advent of AI creating huge amounts of efficiency that we won't be there in the next 50 years where the average income is in modern USD dollars in 2025 dollars about $500,000 a year per person. And if we're at that point and we're actually being fair as society, there should be no one making less than the equivalent of $100,000 a year. Now, we're not headed in that direction right now. Socioeconomic disparity is widening, not getting more fair. But part of the idea of the FTI is to get that socioeconomic disparity being handled more fairly. I have a concept that I call generous capitalism that I'm happy to talk about in the Q&A if people are curious about it. It essentially means being more generous with customers, suppliers, employees, and then once profitable with the community. And where companies are basically serving the employees and the community and the people they do business with, rather than pocketing most of the profits for themselves or almost all of the profits for themselves. So, what have we accomplished as the FTI? We've trained people to pursue a career in their field. You can see our latest event on that, where I basically taught people how to learn what their dream job is and get a valuable skill set in it using LLMs. And you really can do this for free with technology available at your fingertips with just an internet connection. We've also created a curriculum to help people, and I'm putting in the chat the link to that video if I can. There we go. And then we also created a curriculum to help people be more effective at building and maintaining relationships. And this is actually available to members of the FTI, which you can join. It's totally free to be a member of the FTI, but you do have to put an application process in. And once you become a member, you get access to the curriculum, which includes how to achieve your life's goals in a state of positive flow. Thanks, Shelley. The FTI is Freethinker Institute. That's the not-for-profit that I founded and am the executive director of. I, by the way, forgot to, I guess like I felt Helio did a good introduction for me, so I didn't really introduce myself, but I'm a software developer turned entrepreneur turned software developer turned software inventor turned entrepreneur, and I'm also the executive director of the FTI, is the Freethinker Institute. So I'm going to share the information about FTI membership for anyone interested, and we've really helped our members become a part of our tribe. The only requirement to be a part of our tribe is to actually agree with the five intentions, or six intentions as they'll soon be called. And we like to have deep and meaningful discussions about important topics and getting to know each other better. Thanks, Helio, for putting that in the chat. And so I'll put a little more information about the FTI for anyone that wants to learn about it. And we've basically created educational presentation discussion events like this one for 4 years. Our YouTube channel has hundreds of past events, and you can listen to the topics that are of interest to you. So we would love to have you be a subscriber on YouTube if you're interested. You can find us under Freethinker Institute on YouTube. I don't have a link for that one. I'm usually not good at sharing links and self-promotion. So next, things that we could accomplish in the future. So
Garrett, just one
yeah.
second. The previous slide, I don't know if everybody had the same problem. I couldn't see the last option.
Oh, sorry, it
Yeah,
was educational events. Thank you.
thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, my slide generator. I use AI to create the slides, and sometimes they don't shape them correct to the screen. So yeah, most of what we've done is educational events. Then the next thing is tribe building, and then relationship building, and then career training. We've done a little bit of. I built a product management boot camp to teach people how to be product managers before LLMs came about. Now you can do that with an LLM, although it doesn't teach it the way that I teach it. But I'm actually probably gonna revise that if I find the right opportunity to incorporate everything with LLMs, and it's so much easier and better now. So, yeah, so next, thanks, Helio, appreciate that. So, future potential goals. So we've brainstormed in the FTI things that could cause an end to humanity and how could we prevent those from happening. Once we get big enough, we might be able to actually influence those things. Combating misinformation and disinformation in the search for real truth and finding out which news is fake news, for example, I think would be a noble goal to go after. We try to do that by helping people look at left. We did an event where we looked at the same news article on left-wing news, right-wing news, and centrist news, and then we pulled out all the facts, and then we fact-checked anything that sounded suspicious. And it turned out that there were things that were supposedly facts that turned out to be very much, if not outright lies, were very twisted versions of the truth. Um, And we also want to help people learn what their dream job is and get a valuable skill set in doing it. While I taught the theory of that, I want to create an active process that keeps people engaged because I don't think very many people, if I'm really honest, I don't think very many people watch my presentation and then just went out and had the self-motivation to do all the work that's needed to get that valuable job and experience in a new profession. But I think that being able to make that happen in practice is very realistic and possible. And I'm working on some software to help with that. And so the next thing is if you become a member of a pod in the FTI, you can basically create a pod with common goals of other pod members, and you can actually work together to achieve those goals. Whatever those goals might be, as long as they don't cause significant unnecessary harm, everything is fair game. And we do that in different pods today. I'm going to be creating our first entrepreneurial pod relatively soon. And I'm just going to do a quick pause on the screen, and then I want to show one diagram, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. All right, here we go. So this is just another way of looking at the five intentions. So the first intention are kind of the North Stars, and I can share this document if anyone wants it. The first intention is the four North Stars: be polite, be your best self, seek truth, and be fair. And then the next two intentions, which are to transparently share your beliefs with other people and listen with an open mind and hone your critical thinking skills, help you accept more true beliefs and reject false beliefs, which make your current beliefs much more solid and solidly aligned with truth and fairness. Now, the fourth intention is action based, and so this is where we use our healthier thoughts to create positive actions in the world. I would argue all the people that we think are doing harm, they actually think they're doing good. They just have misunderstandings, and they need to go through this cycle of sort of healing their thoughts and getting more aligned with truth and reality. If we're right and they're wrong, maybe I'm wrong. And so next is the fourth intention should be to prevent significant unnecessary harm. And we should do that full stop. And then after we've done that, the fifth intention will be to increase happiness and decrease harm to the extent that we can. And then the fifth intention is action or the what will soon be the sixth intention is to express, accept, and reciprocate love. So that's the end of the presentation. It went a little longer than I expected, but hopefully I didn't make too many people fall asleep. I would love to get questions from anyone that has them or comments.
Wow, that was fantastic. So anyone wants to start the Q&A? No? Okay, so I'll start with one, Garrett.
Sure.
You mentioned that about learning, that people think that when you can only learn when you are younger, your 20s, and you don't learn anymore. But if there's one thing that I've learned at my age is that we never stop learning. And how do we? And the thing is, other people still perceives. And I'm talking about myself and the group. Our group is young in mind, but it's not young in body. So we are kind of close to the 50s and 40s and something like that. And we want people to see that we have a very good learning group. We have people that have evolved a lot in their 40s and 50s and 60s and something like that. But some people don't regard that because of our looks or whatever. How
Yeah.
can we approach that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, embracing change is super important and showing people, through the six intentions, to be honest, like transparently sharing your beliefs with other people and then listening to them with an open mind will show them how solidly aligned your beliefs are with truth and fairness. And when you listen to them with compassion and empathy, they're going to be impressed at the fact that you're actually taking the time to hear their perspective when they share their opinions with you. And so I think following the six intentions can help you come across as the sort of wiser crowd that I've I don't know you all, but I've heard about you and I've heard that it is a wiser crowd. And so I think the way to show that is often by following the six intentions because your beliefs are probably more accurate than most people's. And if they're smart, they will listen to your accurate beliefs. And if they're really smart, they'll be able to point out your flaws and you'll learn from them. or vice versa. You'll point out their flaws and they'll learn from you, especially if you've taught them the six intentions so that they know to listen with an open mind and use their critical thinking skills. Does that
Okay,
make
thank
sense?
you. Yeah, it makes sense.
And
David,
we're gonna
oh,
do an event on lifelong learning at some point. So that's, I think, super important is that we should never feel like we've stopped learning. We should never stop learning. We should be learning our whole lives.
okay, yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Sure.
David?
David.
That was a huge expanse. And wow, so many things to take in. Could you share that last slide that you had? I think it was a PDF, the one
Yeah.
page summary. Maybe
Yeah.
I can hang on to that, grasp it a little.
Yeah. I think it's a very useful summary slide. So let me get you that.
Or you can send to me and I'll post on the video comments as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll put it in the chat if that works.
Okay.
That'd be great.
I think it just went through.
Yes.
We don't have access.
Oh, let me change the sharing. Thanks. There we go. Now you should have access.
I do.
Cool. And
So
it's gonna change, but the
presumably,
only, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, presumably everybody does. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, I opened it up to everybody. So what's going to change is that prevent significant unnecessary harm will be the fourth intention, increase happiness and decrease harm will become the fifth, and then express, accept, and reciprocate love will be the sixth. And the reason is that, and I didn't go over this in the presentation, but I should have, the intentions are in priority order. So whenever there's a conflict between two intentions, the lower numbered one is the more important one. And so that's why the first
Mm,
intention is the North Star. And the idea there is like, imagine you are, expressing lots of love for someone who continues to hurt you over and over and expresses no remorse. Well, that's not a good place to be. So you should be focused on increase happiness, decrease harm, and prevent significant unnecessary harm for both yourself and others, before you're starting to express, accept, and reciprocate love. And so that's why that's last. It's not because it's least important, but it's more like, you want to, share those kinds of meaningful moments with people that are going to be appreciative of it, not people who are going to be abusive.
Thank you. This was great.
Yeah, and I have a tendency to feed with a fire hose, David. So if it felt overwhelming, you're not the only one. Like pretty much anytime I present, I get that feedback. So it's more me, not you. Not It's not true that I get the feedback every time, but I do get it on a regular basis. Let's put it that way. So Vinay,
Oh, thanks, um, Garrett. Thanks, Helio. This is my second time listening to the Five Intentions presentation. Garrett's always so content rich and wonderful. I'm so glad you do that. And to refresh this from time to time is wonderful. I hope you continue to do that. As I was listening to this presentation, one thought crossed my mind is that the the disagreement that arises in people that leads to a lot of discord and a lot of angry words thrown across each other is the speed at which it occurs. I think people just perceive the disagreement as such a threat. Uh, it's a practice that it's not very easily harnessed, where you just slow down your systems and respond to it in such a methodical way as you're describing. Any
yeah.
thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think the way that I do it is to focus on being curious, right? And keep calm, cool, collected, and focus on being curious. Like, remember that, the old childhood saying, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me, right? And that's not true, right? Because words do hurt us. But if you remember that they're only words, and that most likely when someone is being negative towards you, it's probably the cause of something other than something that you did wrong. Like usually it's, reflection is something that you did wrong if you were negative towards them first. But if you weren't, then it's probably deflection or projection or, one of the other possible causes. And so, responding with empathy and curiosity, I think is something that takes habit forming, but is really important to form. And another thing that I think is important, which is part of the FTI curriculum, is how to give and receive feedback. Because if someone is like verbally abusive or, very rude to you, you may not be able to like respond at the moment in the way that you want to, but after you separate yourself from them and you calm down, you want to be able to give that person feedback in a way that they're going to be receptive to. And that's what I teach in the FTI, how to give feedback in a way that people are almost always receptive when I give feedback the way that I teach it. And I've used that as one of the habits that I form. Part of our How to Achieve Life's Goals in a State of Positive Flow is about forming positive habits. And so one of the habits that I was forming is giving feedback in, closer to this way. There's a lot of things to remember, so I don't do all of them every time. But by doing just two or three, people are much more receptive to feedback.
I think that's wonderful. I'm sorry, I forgot to turn my share video on.
Nice to
I
see
didn't
you.
want you to be didn't want you to be looking at a blank screen.
Yeah.
But I think your words that these are just words coming at me. I can take my time. Someone's not actually posing a physical threat to me immediately, so I think those are the words I'll remember. Thank you. That's very good.
Cool. My pleasure.
Yeah.
What other questions do people have or comments? Was this useful? Like, did anyone learn anything today? Or do
Yeah,
you have? Go
it's
ahead.
it's a lot. While you are talking, then at least I started seeing several scenarios where what you're saying happened or is just happening. And one thing that came to mind was how do I know when to, I won't say give up, but pause and maybe come back later. What would be the point where I say, okay, that it's not progressing and I should
If you're
come back later.
Yeah, if you're angry or frustrated, like, and you're, responding instinctively, like emotionally, you want to get used to listening, like observing yourself and knowing whether or not you're responding emotionally. I like to say emotional responses are almost always bad responses. Like, very rarely will an emotional response be a productive one. So if you're responding emotionally, and there's actually science that says our emotions hijack our rational thinking. And so this is we can reason, right? We all want to be reasoning. Well, if our emotions hijack our reasoning, then we're no longer reasoning, we're responding emotionally, and that's usually bad. And then the worst is fight or flight, which can hijack our emotions and just get us into like a fist fight at a bar, right? And much better to stay in the calm, cool, collected part of the brain, the reasoning part, and keep our critical thinking skills sharp. And for that, you have to just observe where you are and be realistic with yourself. I like to say the most insidious lies are the ones we tell ourselves. And if you say, "Oh, I'm not upset right now," when you're really upset, then you're going to end up getting in even more deep water. So hopefully that makes sense. And I think doing that, you can end up in knowing when to separate yourself from a situation when you're angry or frustrated or like feeling a lot of negative emotions. For me, when someone's like a jerk towards me, I'm now much better at like responding in a calm, cool, collected way and just saying, "Hey, what's wrong? Like, is everything okay with you? Like, is there anything I can do to be helpful?" And if you come at it from an extreme place of compassion, people are usually turned like they're taken aback by that, right? Because that's not what they're expecting. They're expecting you to yell right back at them and get into a verbal boxing match, I like to call it. And if you take the opposite approach and take the approach of love and compassion, which is what Christianity is supposed to be about. I'm not Christian, by the way. I'm spiritual, not religious, put it that way. So, but my spirituality is based in reason rather than in faith. I don't have faith. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, and do you have something to say to us about everything that's going on in the last few months? I won't give any specific names, but I think you can
He that shall
understand.
not be named.
Yeah.
So Canada's going to become the 51st. Oh no, I'm just kidding. So sorry, I have a very black sense of humor. We have to these days in America. So no, we're in a really tough spot as a country, and it's going to be bad for the world if things slip further away from democracy. I held an event on whether or not Trump is trying to be a dictator or whether that's a mischaracterization, and I think I made a pretty good argument that he is very much trying and largely succeeding in becoming a dictator. We now have concentration camps in our country. People who are put into camps without due process as concentration camps. So we do have concentration camps in America today. I'm going to be doing another event on that. It's called Alligator Alcatraz is the one I know about, but there might be others too. We've sent people to El Salvador that had no crimes and that were subjected to torture allegedly. So we're in a bad spot. Like, we're in a real make it or break it kind of moment. Um, and this is not a Trump thing, by the way. For anyone that thinks this is only Trump, Trump couldn't do all this. He's not capable of doing all this. He has a lot of people behind him. He's just the figurehead in front. But the Heritage Foundation that created Project 2025 is what I believe is the large group behind him, Peter Thiel. And, there are a lot of people that basically believe that the wealthy should be the ones with the power and the money and that no one else should get a chance. And it shouldn't be a fair fight. It should be the wealthy win and everybody else loses. And unfortunately, we're in a class war that I wish we weren't in because there doesn't need to be one. We can still have billionaires and trillionaires even and still have everybody have a good standard of living. And that's what I'm trying to create in the FTI is where you can still have really, really ultra wealthy people. I think there should be. If someone's like really smart and really hardworking, they should make a lot of money. But we shouldn't have that simultaneous with a bill that just passed that took more money away from people the poorer they were and gave more money to people the wealthier they were. That's going to double homelessness, 10x the number of unsheltered, and take away healthcare from 17 million people. That's just unethical. And actually, the interesting part when I presented on the big ugly bill was that all of the places where they claimed savings actually cost our economy 10x the cost than the savings. So all the savings weren't really savings. And so this bill cost way, way more than anyone was claiming, even after even before their shenanigans about hiding the actual cost using creative accounting, which now our government has gotten into since Enron enjoyed it. Now it's time for our government to get into creative accounting. So you can tell which side I side with more often, even though I'm an independent.
Okay, well, anyone else has a question? Everybody's still digesting the content. It's so rich and yeah, it was so interesting. So let me go back here to my PowerPoint just to finish the presentation. So
Yeah.
I have here, oh, and guys, if you want to ask a question, just raise the hand, and when I finish here, we can still continue, okay? So here's the ways you can contact the speaker, the website that I put on the chat, and I'll put this on the video comments, description as well, his email. And for next month, we already have booked the presentation, Making Critical Thinking Go Viral, the case for skepticism and how to make it contagious with John Michael. It will be on August 27th at the regular time of 7 p.m. And I hope you guys will be there to watch. And of course, Garrett, you're also invited to come. And yes, Tim, you can ask the question.
Okay, I guess main thing is most of this is stuff I already know and to some extent try to do, but try to actually succeeding in doing these things consistently is another matter.
Yes.
Yes.
That's exactly why we have membership in the FTI is because we're a peer group that can, the foundation pod's goal is really to help each other apply the five intentions into our life. So we'll share with each other like, oh, this is something that didn't go well with me. And then people will give feedback about how could you handle that situation better. So it's kind of a peer mentoring coaching group where we all kind of help each other. Because like I said, if we don't help each other, who's going to help us?
Yeah. I guess I'll make a small comment that
Sure.
the platinum rule I first heard of in a little essay about how to behave morally with aliens.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I have not heard of it in that context, but I saw it come up in the 70s when I researched where it came from. Because when I heard it, I was like, that's brilliant. I love it. But then I found the flaw of the platinum rule, and then I modified it a little bit to say, unless there's a good reason not to treat the person the way they want to be treated. Um, Whether or not it works with aliens, I'm not sure I can say. But
Yeah.
like, probably it's a good bet, right? Like, why wouldn't it? It should work with
Why
anything and
wouldn't?
anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. Well, aliens are more likely to have different wants.
Well, if they can explain what their wants are and you give them to them, the chances are good that if we ever met aliens, that they're more powerful and smarter than us. So I'd be trying to give them what they want. Please, like, be good
Yeah.
to me. So
Well, if we're the ones who develop interstellar travel and meet them where they they
that's
are.
true. Then
Yeah.
it's a different story. But I would argue, even if we do that, we should probably be giving them what they want anyway, unless they want to cause significant unnecessary harm. In which case, we should be teaching them not to do that.
Yeah.
David?
I, for one, welcome our alien overlords. Uh, so it was listening to your presentation. A friend of mine who I've been a friend for over 30 years has drifted, in my view. She may think I'm the one who's drifting. And this is Canadian. This is Canadian. Always been a Canadian. Um, to be a pro-Trumper, kind of drifting towards anti-vax and supporting RFK Jr.'s beliefs and so on. And so we had her over for tea the other day, and I declined to rise to the bait that she offered, but only once. She knows my beliefs and my wife's beliefs. Um, so during your presentation, I was trying to apply these things. So it was very interesting to hear your appendix, as it were, about all those other things. Yeah, okay, those are all crazy things. Oh, okay, so you think that too? Good, but I still don't know how to apply these all these intentions, apply them to her
Yeah.
and
So I
and to
do.
people like her, but it's her
Yeah.
specifically because I say she's been a friend for over 30 years.
Absolutely. And don't hurt the relationship, but do ask her thoughtful questions about why she came to her beliefs. Like what got you to like Trump? What do you like about him? What sources does she use to bolster her high opinion of Trump? And actually, David, I'll be honest, I have a hypothesis on how Trump became, popular in the US, but I did a whole event on that on the FTI, which probably is up on YouTube as well, although we lost a number of recordings, we might have lost that one. But the truth is, I'm going to be holding an event where I have a panel of Trump supporters because most of our folks at the event are liberal leaning, and I had a Trump supporter leave last time because he felt like he was just too outnumbered. So what I said is I want to do an event with just Trump supporters, and all I want to do is ask them, what do you like about him? And help me understand the sources that you use to find that these things about him are true, and really ask thoughtful questions. And I think that's what I would recommend doing with her is ask her thoughtful questions. Don't pin her in a corner. Don't pin her down, right? And you seem too polite to be someone to do that. And Canadians do tend to be polite, but but ask thoughtful questions. And there's a man named Daryl Davis who's like a modern polite version of Socrates. He's been befriending, he's a black jazz musician. He's been befriending KKK members since the 80s. And he's gotten hundreds of people to turn in their KKK robes. He got the head of the KKK to give his KKK robes over to Daryl. And this guy does it just by asking questions and making the person that he asks the questions to question their own beliefs. And he would ask them, well, what is it that you don't like about black people, right? Like, help me understand, right? And by asking thoughtful questions and helping them realize that they were wrong, they get themselves unstuck, right? Just by asking, leading them with a trail of breadcrumbs. So I think that's how I would suggest approaching it. You have to be really tactful with your questions so as not to make someone defensive, which is why I say don't pin her in a corner. And again, I don't think you would do that, but I say it for observers. Just in case, because I used to do that, quite frankly, and I still do sometimes. I'm still working on the intentions too. So, does that make sense, David? Do you think that might be a useful approach?
I can try. it'll be so it's Daryl Davis. That's who you're
Daryl
saying?
Davis. Yeah.
Daryl Davis. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's,
I just Googled him.
yes.
I got the right one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, James?
Yeah, thanks for that presentation, Garrett. I agree with everything that you said, and promoting love and goodwill towards others. But in a but it seems to over it seems to be a kind of affront to the whole idea of capitalism that we are embedded, and it has historical roots, you know, to the and link with the idea that it's a pursuit of happiness by way of this system that is established, and it seems to contradict those ideas of generosity and love and so forth, because capitalism is concerned with, if you're part of that system of the pursuit of happiness, it must entail that you're concerned with profits overall, and so what capitalist is going to give up that kind of profit incentive in order to practice all these things that you talked about, love and generosity. And
Yeah.
I know Christians who are really staunch Christians, and they love Trump because he represents motivation for profits, capitalism, and the protection of the entire capitalist system that we're in.
Hmm. Yeah, so capitalism actually used to be much healthier. Um, at least, I can speak to the U.S., which I researched historically much more. But in the U.S., it was around the 70s that capitalism started taking a turn for profit over everything. Wealth was, we had a pretty healthy middle class and not as many poor people before that. And then it became a situation where, and I used to work for GE. Our former CEO, Jack Welch, was a big part of what changed things around to be shareholder capitalism, which is, the profit motive has to be to please the shareholders or make the most amount of money for the shareholders. Before that, there was kind of this idea that we should be benefiting all stakeholders. Now, there was never what I advocate for, which is generous capitalism. That's never existed before. What generous capitalism says is that we're going to give more to our customers, our suppliers, our employees, and then to the community. And then we just take a much smaller percentage to the company. And that's what my company does. That's why I raised my hand, is I'm the capitalist that's going to give up all the money and pay it all out to everybody else. And I like the Zig Ziglar quote, if you help enough people achieve their goals, you'll achieve your goal as well. And ultimately, my goal is to bring about a new era of capitalism, which I call generous capitalism, and get rid of what I call greedy capitalism, which is what we're in today. So I don't lack ambition, as you can tell. Can I do that? I don't know. But my goal is to make my company successful and then have a Harvard Business Review article written about how generous capitalism is the future of capitalism and everyone should join it. As I explain the concept to people, it's been pretty popular. I presented on it twice to the FTI, so that one's definitely on YouTube if you want to see it. David, thanks for the question.
I was going to mention the fellow who was head of Costco in the U.S., which is a rather large company. His salary was something like $150,000 a year or so, because that's what he needed, and he thought that's what was right. And you compare the ratio of the salary or the earnings, 'cause it's not just salary, of the CEO of a company to the average worker, and it's gotten orders of magnitude bigger than it used to be. And
Yes.
how, do they really deserve that money? Deserve is a
Yes.
difficult question, but I think James and I are not Jim, but James are on the on the edge of no, they don't. They're not. I was going to recommend to James and also Jim. Sorry, that I'm just currently reading a book called Values by Mark Carney. And I've only read the first tenth of it, but it gives the history of value, and capitalism becomes part of that. But the idea of the current ideas of value as opposed to Adam Smith's ideas and so on. And so far, it is really quite interesting. It's a heavy book to go through. I'm the host of a book club, and it probably won't become one of our book club books because I think it's just too much for us. But anyway, I'm reading it anyway, and I may discuss it at some other point. Also, my brother was a capitalist. They referred to him as an entrepreneur, but he was a capitalist, and his company, all the employees owned shares.
Yes.
That was just how you built a company, and his objective was to build a company, and then what products it made was somewhat secondary to building a great company. And so they set out to make one product, and that did not succeed. So they adapted to making something else and something else, and built a company which ultimately he sold for $1 billion. So that's one definition of great. The company he sold it to then broke it, but that was beyond his do your best and let the rest go, or whatever
Yep.
that saying
Do
was.
your best and accept the rest. Yep.
Yeah, accept the rest. Yeah, do the best.
Yep.
So so all his employees then benefited from that, as did he. But anyway, so that resonates with me again, Garrett. So the more I hear you say, the more resonating I'm getting. This is great.
Great. Well, we'd love
Jim?
to have you come join us in FTI meetings if you can. And would love to come back sometime if that makes sense. And as far as market values versus moral values, in the book, in Carney's book, the idea of generous capitalism is to try to merge those two so that we can actually have our moral values like aligned with market values. I think that's what generous capitalism does is it kind of aligns the two. And yeah, I think I haven't read the book. I just saw a little, I just did a quick check on it and summary. But
Okay.
but I also think ESOPs are a great idea. Employee stock owned I think uh partnership is what we call employee owned companies in the US. And so I've always wanted to create that. I kind of have one with my current for-profit. It's a food tech company, which might be in Canada before too long. We'll see. Um, and everybody in my company has equity in the company. So that's how I think all companies should be. And I think it's a smart way to do things because then everybody has a vested interest in the company's success. So most people have an equivalent amount in dollars per whatever they've earned in cash. They've earned at least that much in equity. So they'll essentially double their salary once we make enough money to buy people out of their equity.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Jim? You're muted?
Did you say James or Jim?
Jim. Jim Berg. No? Jim?
Yeah.
Okay.
There. Okay.
There we go.
There. Okay. Anyway. Okay. There. Couldn't seem to find the lower hand, but the thing. But anyway. Yeah. One thing about the raising the I guess median or minimum income up to the equivalent of 100K in present day US dollars. Now I've been following a podcast and sort of going through from the earliest ones called The Great Simplification. And a major theme of that is that is the carbon is we run through the fossil fuels, we're just not going to be able to be as profligate with energy and everything else. Uh, so, barring some, so to get something like what you're talking about, we need some other energy sources is with as much energy return on energy invested is the fossil fuels were in the beginning. Now, I guess now David knows I always think nuclear comes closest, but I did run across a point somebody made that there are some situations where solar actually uh, makes sense, and one that sounds really good uh, is using it to run desalination because hey, the places that need desalination the most are pretty darn sunny, and it doesn't matter if your desalination plant is only running half the time. but uh, but anyway, so that needs some work on it to so we really can replace the fossil fuels as they get short and cause problems with
Yeah.
warming.
So I think that's actually largely a solved problem, because solar is much cheaper than fossil fuels and nuclear right now. And there's huge amounts of land that solar could be put on, let
Yeah.
alone all the rooftops that exist. And wind isn't that much more expensive than solar. And then there are new batteries that I'm connected with, that have a much longer lifetime, much less environmental problems, and charge faster. So they're not fully out in all use cases, but they're being used commercially right now. So
Yeah, yeah, the batteries are things I'm skeptical about that getting actually good enough. Uh, uh, as I say, if you've got something that takes a lot of energy, but it doesn't have to run all the time, then yeah, you can use solar or wind.
right.
But something like, say, refining aluminum, you can't turn those off for 12 hours and not have it be disastrous.
Yeah, but battery, if you look at how much batteries have improved, I don't know if you know this, but back in the advent of cars in the 1800s, half the cars were electric. The only reason that gas cars took off is because the batteries were so bad back then that they didn't last very long.
Yeah,
But half the cars were electric in the very early days.
yeah,
We've gone a long way for batteries, and it's going to get much, much better with graphene batteries. I think it was graphene that the company that I
yeah.
was thinking of was using. But there's going to be a lot of improvements in batteries now that we have all electric cars because there's a huge profit motive. Anyone that provides a much better battery makes a huge amount of money. And so there's going
Yeah.
to be, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, look at the article on energy density in Wikipedia. Uh, None of the batteries are really all that impressive. If they get now, maybe metal air batteries can get up to something close. And I'm rather impressed with the possibilities of this sodium fuel cell that David sent a link to me. Uh, though there you though the making though separating the sodium from other stuff that has to run at high temperatures. So like aluminum refining, it's going to be something that you need to run continuously. An intermittent thing isn't going to cut it. An intermittent energy source isn't going to cut it.
The other thing to keep in mind here is that we have probably between 50 and 100 years until fossil fuels run out.
Yeah.
And by that time, like that's a lot of time. And they've made huge improvements in fusion energy sources. Still, obviously, not commercially viable, or we all would have heard about it, but there actually have been some good scientific advancements in fusion, and they've
Yeah.
held fusion reactions together for longer than ever before, in more stable ways than ever before. both China and Europe and the US, all three have made big advancements. So I think within 50 years, we'll probably figure fusion out. I don't think it's going to be within 10 years like they're predicting, but that's because they want funding. But I do think within 50 years, we'll
Yeah.
figure it out.
Well, well, I think there's enough coal under Alberta that I think the environmental problems are gonna kill us on fossil fuels before that actually runs out.
Could be. The Earth's temperature, I looked up the rate at which Earth's temperature has heated up the fastest since Earth's formation, and it was something like uh, before the rise of humanity, it was something like 6,000 years that it went up 1.5 degrees Celsius. And then once humanity came around, it was something like I forget the exact numbers. I did an event on global warming. Actually, I think I came up with these numbers afterwards, but you can if you do the right prompts in ChatGPT, you can come up with it. And then it was something like 20x faster, and then in the last 50 years, it's gone up that time
Yeah.
period. So that amount. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. We're kind of burning up right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I think that previous one would be the Paleocene Eocene thermal maximum.
Could be.
Yeah. But anyway,
David?
Yeah.
Just one quick thing. Garrett, you said you had you were doing something with batteries?
Um,
In
so
your battery
I have
technology?
a colleague that has some battery technology that's pretty new that's used in commercial applications. I think he uses graphene, but I'm not really close to that product. I'm working with him on something else. But if you want information, just email me and I can try to get, if you're in
Okay.
business, I can try to get you more info.
I'm not in the business of
But if you're
doing that,
curious,
but I'm curious
yeah,
curious is my middle name.
me too.
Okay, any more questions?
I also wanted to say hi to Bonnie.
Oh,
Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, I'm really sorry. Oh man, I was supposed to be here I thought it was 7 o'clock. I got screwed up. And we had
no
a flat
worries.
tire.
It's recorded. Next
So,
week it will be
oh,
available.
yeah. Hi, Garrett. Sorry. I
Hi,
just
that's
wanted
okay.
to
Thanks
be
for
here to
inviting me.
support you. Oh my
Yeah,
God, sorry.
Yeah,
okay. It is
Garrett.
a time than usual. It's just that I sleep at 9, and so like 9 Eastern. So that's why Helio was kind enough to let me start a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
fantastic. Oh, James has another question.
Yeah, this your idea of this kind of business principle where you are practicing these a certain kind of capitalism, which is more
Generous, yeah,
concerned with
generous
generosity.
capitalism.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yep.
but you're in a system where that is competitive. How are you going to compete with those
Oh,
monolithic
that's the best part about
capitalists?
it. I've asked hundreds of people, would you rather do business with a greedy company or a generous one? What about you, James?
Oh yeah, but
Would you
sure.
rather pay
I
more for a worse product or would you rather pay
right,
less for a better
right,
product?
right.
Yeah.
But
So
there's
the
a kind of
natural winner in the free
monopolization.
markets is the
Yeah,
generous capitalist business.
right, right. But in a competitive field, you're competing with monopolies, with larger companies that could easily, buy you out and
No, they can't
outcompete
buy
you.
me out without my permission.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
I don't plan to sell, so
Yeah,
I plan to compete and win,
right,
not sell.
right. Yeah, but maybe some other, others are not that as what idealistic,
Yep.
because they're
Well,
going to be, because it's a matter of dog eat dog survival, right?
not
Because
yeah, it's
I mean,
not really a matter of survival because if another company, is highly profitable and maximizing their own profit, any other company can come in and be more generous, right?
mm,
And so anyone can come in, be more generous, undercut them on price with a better product, and everyone's going to flock to the better product at the lower price. So actually, the free markets favor generous capitalism, not greedy capitalism. The problem is we don't have enough leadership in
mhm.
people with capital to and once people create a successful business, they tend to get greedy. And so what I want to do is show that actually you can be more successful being generous than you can than
Mhm.
you are being greedy.
Right. Are there examples of is Costco an example of that
Costco is
kind
an
of
example of a generous
okay,
capitalist business. Yeah.
okay.
And
And Trader
Patagonia is
Joe's?
another one.
Okay.
Trader Joe's is another one. You know, they pay above average salaries for their workers. They treat their suppliers well. I know Costco does, and I'm pretty sure Patagonia does as well. You know, Costco gives, they actually calculate the way that Costco works. They calculate what they want their profit to be, and then they charge the least amount that they can for all their products to hit their margin.
Hmm,
Oh, I see. All right.
So they undercut everyone on price
Okay.
significantly.
that's
So
great.
sounds pretty optimistic. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Garrett, it was fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. And yeah, it was a lot of content. Definitely, you were invited to come back.
Thank you.
And yes, please. And maybe not next month, but probably in
No,
2026.
yeah,
We would love to have you back here. And yeah, this was fantastic. Thank you very much for your time.
thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Have a great week and enjoy your summer.
Yeah.
You
Thank you.
too.
Bye,
Okay.
bye, Elio. Thanks for
Bye.
organizing this.
You're
Thanks for all the
welcome.
great
Bye.
comments and questions, everyone. And thanks, Helio and Bonnie, for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.